Captain Midnight.
So I should probably admit something right off the top. I was more of a Nintendo 64 kid in the heyday of the Tomb Raider franchise, and as a result, I didn't really jump on board until 2013 with the release of the Tomb Raider reboot, and I was pretty blown away. Like a video game version of Casino Royale or Batman Begins, it was one of the few times where the gritty reboot approach really worked, and I was hooked on everything from the gameplay to the pretty well-written story. And now it looks like they're going to be bringing that version of Lara Croft to the big screen. And honestly, I'm kind of torn on that, because while I'd love to see a really good movie based on this game, at a certain point you just kind of feel like Charlie Brown and the football with these adaptations. I'm just not sure how many more bad ones I can take. But I do have a few suggestions of what this film can do to get the Tomb Raider reboot right. Number 4, change it up. So the first Tomb Raider film, back in 2001, was a pretty big success financially. And for what it was pretty decent. For some, Angelina Jolie will always be the first thing that pops into their head when they think of Lara Croft. The sequel was a disappointment though, and it kind of left the franchise in the dust. And while I like the first film fine, I think maybe it is best that we do leave it behind and go for a different tone entirely. Now there's a reference to the old school era at the end, dual-wielding Jolie's signature pistol, but for the most part it seems like they're going for their own thing. But honestly, I'm not sure if they're going far enough. What the 2013 game really succeeded in doing was getting a little more down and dirty and doing away with a lot of the more over-the-top elements of the franchise. It took the character of Croft more seriously and followed her through her journey into becoming the badass explorer that we were all familiar with. What I'm afraid of with this new movie is prioritizing what's cool over the actual story and the character. These slow-mo scenes strike me as a little too close to the kind of dumb, over-the-top trap that the last Tomb Raider film fell into. Now I understand that it's a trailer meant to sell you on the movie and they want to convey that it's going to be an exciting adventure and all that good stuff. But going with this circa 2007 extreme slow-mo effect just kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's lazy and it kind of feels at odds with the more grounded tone that they're going for. Number 3, use CGI correctly. Okay, I'm not going to give you the standard YouTube guy spiel about how CGI sucks, man, and they just need to make everything practical. Because it's not really true. Sure, there's many areas where I prefer practical effects, especially with things like makeup. But if CGI is used correctly, it's an amazingly useful tool. And you usually won't notice it if it is done correctly. CGI can make this look like this. It's pretty amazing. But in an adventure film like this one, if you center your action set pieces around it, you might have a problem. Because these stories require the audience to buy into the suspense of the scene. Indiana Jones might actually get chopped up in an airplane propeller. Bond might just fall to his death while chasing this guy through a construction site. Now, we know this is not actually going to happen, but they're staged so effectively and with such precision and skill in the direction and editing that fact kind of doesn't matter. And that's where the thrills come from. The audience wants to buy into the fantasy the movie sets up, and you've just got to let them. Now, take a look at this scene from the trailer. She's on the wing of an airplane, it's collapsing, and there's a furious river below. But something just feels off. Like, it's not awful or anything, but there's a part of your brain saying, yeah, this doesn't look right. And that's where the over-reliance on CG comes in. To be fair, the movie is still months and months away, and they have plenty of time to polish up the effects. Like, movies do that all the time. But if this is what we can expect, I am a little worried. Because for this kind of movie to work, you really need to buy into the stakes, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that if these are the kind of action scenes that we can expect. Number 2, steal from the best. Speaking of Indiana Jones, it's hardly an original observation that the Tomb Raider series has a lot in common with Indy. So it only makes sense that Spielberg's series would have a large influence on the new Tomb Raider. In fact, the director, Roar Uthaug, awesome name by the way, even said in a video for IGN that the Indiana Jones films are some of his favorites.
Growing up in Norway, my favorite films were the Indiana Jones films.
Hopefully then he's able to identify what made those movies work as well as they did. And it's not just the surface elements of adventures and far-off jungles and gunplay and the search for lost treasure. After all, plenty of movies have included all those things, and they aren't exactly remembered as classics. Now, what makes the Indiana Jones movies work so well, aside from Harrison Ford's great performance, is the pacing and the editing. Just take a look at the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now there's a fantastic Cinefix video that breaks down everything that went into creating the sequence that I will put in the description in case you want to check that out. But basically everything about this opening scene is perfectly crafted. When Indy and his assistant enter the booby trap temple, the editing is very slow. It lets scenes really play out. The music is also minimal and there's a sense of unease. As the temple starts to crumble, the editing and music changes drastically. Suddenly the cutting is very quick, giving the scene a huge sense of urgency, all while John Williams' iconic score starts to blare up. Now this might just be my favorite opening to any blockbuster film ever. It's a perfect piece of popcorn filmmaking, and it's this very thoughtful and deliberate direction and editing and sound design that separates Raiders from its pale imitators, some of its own sequels, and yes, even the first Tomb Raider. So as the old saying goes, if you're gonna steal from the best. I hope the team behind Tomb Raider studied the construction of the Indiana Jones films very carefully, and hearing the director himself talk about them is fairly encouraging. Number 1. Please, for the love of God, video game movies, just let us once care about the characters. Okay, this may sound like the most boring and obvious of all my points, but it just had to be included, because this is where I think most video game movie adaptations just fall flat on their face. The 2013 game did a pretty great job of making you invested in the character of Lara Croft and her hellish journey. So like I said before, they have a lot to work with there. And the movie landed some great actors in Alicia Vikander, who was fantastic in Ex Machina and won an Oscar for her role in The Danish Girl, and Walton Goggins, who has the huge advantage of being Walton Goggins. Oh, plus Nick Frost is farting around in there somewhere too, so that's fun. These are some really good ingredients, and hopefully the script gives them something to work with. These people can really carry a movie if you let them, but of course the risk in action movies like this is that they bend over backwards to seem cool so often that they don't bother developing their characters beyond the thinnest sketches. Give the actors a decent script and something interesting to play, and you could easily have a pretty great movie. Of course, that's what I thought about Assassin's Creed too, and look how that turned out. Alright, so to wrap things up, the Tomb Raider 2018 trailer. What did I think? Well, I'm cautiously optimistic. While I didn't love the trailer, I think there's some promising stuff in there, and it all depends on what the movie decides to emphasize. If they can avoid some of the usual pandering to 14-year-old boy type antics that so many other video game movies fall into, they could really have something. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But give us an adventure movie with mysterious supernatural undertones, and you've pretty much guaranteed that I'm at least going to check it out. March 2018 can't come soon enough.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes.